Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Saturday Morning D&D show. My name is Jordan with a silent PH in the middle, and I am joined always by my wonderful co-host, Sir Lucien, over at Sir Lucien Gaming. Say hello, sir.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a Saturday morning. I had snow yesterday, which was crazy.
There you go. April
but it's
snow
finally
brings May
sunshining.
showers, I guess.
Yeah, April snow showers. Yeah, but I'm ready for some D&D. Man, I played a bunch. I think
That's
you
awesome.
played a bunch.
Yeah,
so.
and online stuff, which has been really cool. Although one of my groups is having a D&D speakeasy where we're all secretly gathering, and we shouldn't be, but it's
breaking the rules. Breaking the rules.
Very, yeah. So breaking a little bit of rules, but it's fun. It's good times. Today this week there was some big news coming out.
I saw a little hint of a few things here and there.
I knew about this book, this Exploring Eberron book, but I wasn't really aware that it was coming out like soonish, I guess. But what's going on? Keith Baker's working on an Eberron book that's going to be print on demand, I think.
Or PDF and you'll be able to get it from the DMsGuild, and it's definitely another deep dive into more Exploring Eberron stuff. I just noticed it was a tweet that they said it's getting close, but they didn't give a date yet, so I still don't know when it's possibly coming out. But I know you're a big Eberron fan, and we like Keith Baker's world. We've talked about his world. It's an integral part of Dungeons & Dragons these days, and if he's going to put out another big book, it's just really cool that he's supporting that a lot. Like, I don't know if we'll get, like, the Matt Mercer will put out additional books for Wildmount.
Oh yeah,
those kind of feel more one-off, and they feel like a tie into D&D, but then I can go back to doing my own thing. I don't know if we're going to get a book a year from Matt Mercer on his world, but Keith puts out several books a year for his world, so he does full into supporting his world and adding more to it and imagining more for dungeon masters to take in and run in their games if they want to play in his world, or even steal pieces and put it in their game. So he is a prolific creator of fantasy world Eberron. I just think it's cool just to see. I don't know when it's coming out, but do you think this is something that you would pick up? Do you have the other Eberron book sets so far?
I have the Wayfinder's Guide to Eberron that came out a long time ago. And then a lot of that information was just put into Rising from the Last War. And I do have 3.5 PDFs that I bought because I was doing those Eberron videos. And those still hold up. Like, you can use the lore, you can use the locations and the places, and reskin a couple monsters and NPCs and stuff. But no, but speaking of Keith Baker, like, he's very tied to this world, which is interesting because it is owned by, and it's kind of like the Forgotten Realms in a way, where Ed Greenwood still, like, people tweet at him questions and he's like, oh no, like, and he'll give you very detailed answers. Like, this NPC in this town, he only works on Tuesdays, and he takes every month of blah, blah, blah off. And he knows those things. And Keith Baker is also very entwined in Eberron and wants, and I think we've talked about this before. There's the canon with a K, the Keith Baker canon with a K, where other writers have defined Eberron, but he has come in and been like, that those are in the books and that's canon. But, like, if you're asking me personally, I always envisioned this like this. And so there are those, like, purists out there that really enjoy his stuff. I mean, I love Eberron. I think it's really cool. Going back to your Matt Mercer idea, Keith Baker's not running a weekly, extremely popular game set in Eberron. So I think he has more free time and more leniency to kind of work on this on the side and things like that. But no, it's interesting. And I like the DMsGuild. I almost wish that this was a book that he was publishing, and I don't know why. I think I feel that way because it feels more authentic in a way. Like, it would be like if Monty Cook were to start publishing DMsGuild stuff. And I'm like, well, but you're Monty Cook, you could, like, publish your own thing. And that's kind of how I feel about Keith Baker. But at the same time, to get it print on demand is kind of cool. And those books are fairly decent. I have a lot of print on demand stuff from Drive Through RPG, i.e. the DMsGuild. So, yeah.
Yeah, so pretty cool. I don't know exactly what'll be in the book that we haven't seen yet. I haven't really seen excerpts from it, but he does write a lot of stuff. He writes a lot of
Mm-hmm.
articles on a weekly, almost monthly basis, at least. I've seen lots of stuff that he keeps posting to his website about more things and more interaction with cultures and different races and different cities or different places or different things. And people often ask him questions about, well, how does gunpowder work, or how
Yeah.
does, they'll just pick some abstract thing, and he's like, he has a thought about, well, is there moons, how many moons are there, do people go to the moons, and
Yeah.
then here's Keith Baker's idea on it. And just like you said, and I think I don't even know if he's running a huge campaign. We never hear about Keith Baker. He's running a campaign, and that's why he's creating all this stuff. I
Right.
almost feel like he's creating a world, whether he's running anybody in it or not. He is just full into this creation mode of this entire encompassing D&D world. Probably a universe in his mind, though we've talked about how Wizards of the Coast wants to make it a world within their multiverse.
Yeah.
Versus he wants it to be, or we've heard that in the past, he wants it to be its own multiverse. It's not part of anybody else's.
No, he just like,
Yeah.
it doesn't need to be part of, Spelljammer and the planes and all this other stuff. Like, he really thinks it's like, it should, I don't know, you're using that rule set, but it's not tied together. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about last week with Final Fantasy and how you immediately put these things together, because every Final Fantasy game, although very different worlds, very different whatever, some of them have different physics and things like that, there's still that, like, I cast a fire spell and a white mage has healing magic and things like that. And so, I see why people want to put it all together, especially Wizards of the Coast, because they want to be able to, we're going to slide in Magic the Gathering and we're going to do this. It's going to be really cool. But I actually respect Keith Baker for sticking with that and just being like, this is how I have always pictured it. You don't want to go to Faerun. You don't want to go to Dark Sun. This is Eberron. And I don't know. But so I'm not sure what's in this book either. I was kind of reading the back panel on this picture that I found, and it looks like it might have an adventure and then just more information about the world below Kyber and the oceans around Eberron and things like that. So he's just fleshing out the world a little bit more.
Yeah, filling more detail in. That's cool.
Yeah. And it's a companion. It says right here, like, it's a companion to Eberron Rising from the Last War. So if you enjoyed that book, if you're running an Eberron game, if you plan to, it could be a good pickup for you. So
yeah. And no matter what you think of Keith Baker's, whether you play it or not, it's just a huge feat for somebody to have thought about their world that they've created in such detail. Like all the races are explained, all the different cultures. There's big wide swaths of history. There's how are the gods handled, how are like you said, oceans and underground and what is all going on. I mean, he's really just dove into this thing. It wasn't just, I built a town because I needed to run an adventure for my guys, and maybe I have a few more details around it. It's like full on world building that he's been doing for years and years and years. So it's an impressive feat to be able to do all
that. And it's different. As much as like Matt Mercer is a great person and stuff, I really feel like Wild Mountain Taldor are a revised version of generic fantasy setting. And Eberron just felt really different. Like, I liked that they were, like engineering magic in a weird way.
Yeah. I would say Wildmount and Taldor feel closer to Forgotten Realms than it does to Eberron.
Yeah.
Or like a Dark Sun or I definitely think it leans more that way for sure. But it's cool that we're getting more worlds. We're 7 years in, 8 years in of D&D at this point. Who knows anymore? I'm quarantined and I don't know how long I've been here. This could be 2025 at this point, and I wouldn't know.
Well, and when the new Magic the Gathering book comes out, that's going to be a fun, new, interesting world too, with its Greek setting and stuff like that. So I mean, all styles of play, I guess, is the idea that. If anything, these campaign settings show you that you can play D&D in a different way, and it's still fun D&D, like, we'll get into this later, but I'm playing this Weird and Wild game is the supplement we're using. It's a generic supplement, but the DM very much wanted us to have 0 to little magic, and it's been not a completely different game, but like, we're all fighters, and or not all fighter. We're all melee kind of strength characters. And so we built characters very much like, your mouse is flying around your face, or is there a moth? I don't know. Am I doing this? Can you see my mouse? Oh, you can. That's weird. All right, zoom's done.
I don't see
sorry.
the mouse. I don't see the mouse.
Yeah, there's a mouse on my camera. I'm sorry. I'll have to fix that later. But this Dark Souls game, and we didn't think about building, like a barbarian that has a high intelligence, because you're trying to like, this is how barbarians are effective. And now it's coming to light that we're like, oh, we're not good at investigation checks. And like nobody is, because we would always have the wizard, or we're not good at charisma checks, or we're not good at this. And it's kind of, I don't know. It's a different mode of play where like, yeah, we can beat stuff up, but like understanding something, not the best. So yeah.
That's funny. So that's cool. Some other news that's been kind of coming out our ways. We did have a couple of videos from the D&D channel. So they've been at home filming different things here and there. There was a really good Dragon Plus video, because it referenced what we saw just earlier this week, the new UA article on Psionics. So what'd you think of that, reading through some of the kind of things that they've done, things that they've decided not to do from the old Psionics UAs we've seen, and then the change to moving to this new one?
I want to talk about the Mystic, because they were basically like, we're just getting rid of the Mystic, and that was interesting to me. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out this mouse issue, so I'm not like freaking people out. But no, the Mystic, and I only remember the Mystic from running you and Elise D&D and Indoor Adventure and LB. Who else was there?
Maybe Graybeard.
Graybeard, maybe? I don't
Depends
remember.
It depends what adventure you're talking about.
Dragon on the Mount, yeah.
Yeah,
and
Graybeard was there.
The Mystic had just came out, and Elise wanted to play it, and so we let her play it. And it was, I remember it feeling a little overpowered, but they were also only level 4. So I'm like, I don't know, like, and it's playtest material, like whatever. But,
though you almost killed her with the roper. So.
I did. Yeah. Well, there you go. But it's weird for me that they're just like, we're just abandoning that. Goodbye. Because they put all this work and stuff into it. And I don't know. I definitely kind of want to make a video because I wanted to go back and look at the Mystic and then look at the new stuff and see how they like might affect one another or synergize. But it looks like Psionics is going to be just subclasses. Is that subclasses and feats and things like that. So you can be like a fighter that has this psionic power, and then your subclass or through specific feats you can say that this is how you have that. I thought it was kind of interesting that we're not getting a psionic class so much as you can be a psionic wizard and reflavor your spells like this, or you can be a psionic knight and then get abilities that are spell-like, but the power comes from within, which I assume things like anti-magic fields, you still be able to use your psionic powers, but...
Yeah, so you absolutely want to mark down to watch this Dragon Plus video that they just put out, because Jeremy Crawford goes into deeply their thought process of where they were with the Mystic, why they were thinking about changes, where they wanted to move it to. Then they tried the Psionic Wizard, the feedback they got from that, and how they pivoted after they looked at the feedback from that to what he decided to try to design now, which is this more modular, more open psionics that could be for any character, and to closely replicate more of what psionics was in the earlier editions. And he talks about some of the earlier editions of psionics. So if you want to know their thought process from where they started to where they're at now, that video really talks about it, Dragon Plus, with him and Bart Carroll, and they dive deep into it, which is really cool.
That's cool.
I won't try to paraphrase it for everybody, for Jeremy, but they have really good design reasons and goals that they were trying to meet, which meant they wanted to make changes from some of the stuff they had released before and move it to what it looks like now. And it still doesn't sound like this is the final version of what everything is, but they're exploring these options based on the feedback they had been getting and trying to make it not just, I think the one term in there that he used was, we don't just want to create abilities that are magic abilities with just a sci-fi word in them or a sci-fi theme. He says he wanted them to be something different, truly different, and still give you the feel of the psionics from the earlier editions and what they think psionics really is at this point. So that's what we're seeing in some of this stuff, which is pretty cool. So I thought it was interesting. I mean, we one of our characters pivoted just this past week and created the soul knife character and is playing a soul knife in our campaign, because once they saw it, they were excited about it. When I saw the psychic knight and the soul knife and the other one's the soul something, the sorcerer soul something, all of them immediately made me think of different cool characters I could make using those as, you know, the base starting point to say, oh, I can make this kind of character that does this and this and this. So I really I liked it. I like the idea that there are feats that you can get, so that if maybe you like the character you have, but it makes sense that they somehow at some point during their adventure they come in contact with something that gives them this mind power, or they develop it through rigorous training in some way. It's gifted to them somehow by, who knows, they touch a rock that fell from the sky and all of a sudden they have it, or something like that. I like that idea that it could be introduced. I hope it's not something that every character grabs because it's so good you have to have it in your build. Like, you know how feats sometimes get where everybody wants that same feat because it's so good you have to have it in your character build. It's
right.
You know, it gives you 4 attacks per round, that feat. Oh, well, everybody needs that. You know, so I hope it doesn't get to be where everybody has a psionic feat in the party, but I like the idea that there are options that some of the characters could have it. So
and for those of you who didn't read it, every psi class is going to get these psionic dice, I guess. Or did I not read that correctly? I don't remember. Like the rogues get...
That's the one they're in now. Is there's a dice associated with it, and there's a
psionic talent die. So as you it starts out at like a D4 or a D6 or something. No, a D6. And if you roll, when you want to do something psionically, you would roll this die. And so, for instance, the psionic knight for the fighter has a psionic powered leap, and you roll this die and a D6, and let's say it hits a 5. You double that, and then you can jump an extra 10 feet using your psionic powers. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. That die goes up and down the chain, the dice chain. If you roll a 1 on your D6, your next psionic die that you roll is a D4. Yeah. But if you roll a 6, the next time you use it, it's a D8. So they're kind of exploding in a way. Like you explode up the dice chain, and it's also more difficult, statistically, to get to the next tier. So really easy with a D4 to get to a D6. And then it's a little easier to get to a D8, but then a little difficult to get to a D10, 12. And I don't know if it goes to 20. I'm assuming it kind of does, but...
the highest one, I don't know how far it goes up. I know a D12 is listed in the stat blocks, but I don't know how much farther it goes after that. But it is an interesting...
It's a new mechanic that we haven't really seen, and I like that.
Which is cool.
It's kind of fun. You have the soul knife and the psi thing, and it was cool. I've never been a big psionic fan, though. Like, there are those people that really just want psionics, and like, I want to be like a mind bender person. And I was just like, I don't know. That's why we have magic, right? I want to be a wizard. Yeah. Like, because I can do everything the psionic person wants to do, and I can open a portal to the plane of like fog. I don't know. But
the thing that I think make them cool in my mind, at least the version in my head of what psionics is the old style. It was because when you're going through character generation, there's that one point at the end of character generation, you roll on a D100 if you had psionics, and if you rolled like the 00, the 99, it was like a really small percentage, then you had it. And so most of the characters you were making never had it. And there was the one time I made the roll.
Nice.
And my character was going to have it, and it was just because it was something special that wasn't always happening. You couldn't choose to play it. You couldn't just ask your DM if I could play it. It was if you rolled it during character creation, you could do this one thing. And I think there was something special about that. And I think that's why I like it, even though you're right. I mean, I can do all the same stuff with magic. I can do all the same cool things, just flavor it however I want. I can flavor all of my magical stuff as being mind-like powers instead of, firebolt. It's just a mind bolt of some sort or whatever.
And I have with my Eldritch Knight Warforged fighter, a lot of his quote spells are, like he fires a rocket out of his arm, or he's got like a chain lightning whip for lightning lure. And I reflavored it because I thought that was fun.
Yeah. And so mechanically it all fits. Your GM's on board with how it fits in the RP, and it sounds cool. And I just love the whole idea of that too. So I see the standpoint from those that have said, well, do we really need it because we can just flavor it how we want? I also like the idea of all the people, we always want more stuff to play with, right? We always want more toys. So there's that group. So I think it's interesting. And I think we had Psionics, so it feels weird that we don't anymore. At some point we've had it. Why not still have it? Is there a reason it's been left out for so long? And Jeremy even talks about that. It's not really been left out of 5e. Psionics has been with us from the very first words of Dungeons & Dragons 5e, not the first words, but the creatures have had them. Mind Flayers have still been able to do it. The Duragar dwarves still have psionic powers. There's creatures that have the psionic powers in their stat blocks. We just haven't had the character options of psionic powers. Yeah. But it's in the 5e world. It's in Forgotten Realms. It is a thing. So it's interesting. It's, and so there were spells too that were at the end of that UA article. So some new spells that are all psionic themed: Mind Sliver, Intellect Fortress, these ones that we've heard before, Mind Thrust, all these kind of cool things, telekinetics, telepathy. There's lots of telepathy in the game these days, but there wasn't before. I think with the Warlock getting added in, we got a lot more of that aberrant mind kind of stuff going on, and people can be able to talk to each other, and more of that seeped in. But this used to be how that filled that stuff. The only way you could talk to someone else like that. So it's very interesting. Now, in that Dragon Plus article, not only did they talk about this UA, but he also touches base on the previous UA, which was the magical tattoos and the other stuff. And you know what I didn't realize in the magical tattoo one? Did you realize those are magic items?
Yeah.
I missed that whole line. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like a magic item that can't be stolen from you or something, I thought.
Right. Well, or you can have, the attunement is, you can have 2 or 3 tattoos and they only count for 1 attunement, the way it's written at the moment. So that was one thing that's been, people have been asking about and wondering. But I thought the tattoos were spells or class features. I read through it, I skimmed through it very quickly. I didn't even realize they were wondrous items that you find in the world, and then it would attach to a character. So I thought, that adds in a whole new kind of dynamic of how you could add something like that to your campaigns.
I like the idea that I have to go find like this magical gem, and then I have to refine it into a powder, mix that with like unicorn saliva, and then use that to get my tattoo or something.
And the one thing he was talking about was tattoo, is he said when they made the one of them, the idea is that they're not supposed to be common, but if you were to find another one, how you could describe how the 2 tattoos are 2 separate images, but because they begin to fuse together into one seamless image, just like we do with tattoo artists these days. He was talking about where people will go get tattoos, and maybe the first one is a cool frog, and then the next one they get is, I don't know, they're big into lily pads, but now they're thinking about their third one, and it's a joining of the 2 that makes it more of a scene on a pond, and it's the princess kissing the frog, or whatever, wherever you want to go with it. As people get tattoos, their mind continues to think about, well, what's the next tattoo I want to get, or what's the next cool piece of art that I would like to put on my skin. And he wanted to represent that in the rules if we wanted to. So it was taking almost like a modern look at tattoos and saying, if somebody wanted to do that with their character, how could we help them do that? And here's some UA rules that we could look at to see maybe do something with that. So, and again, another cool conversation where Jeremy Crawford talks about the whys of what they were doing, where it came from, what was the philosophy behind the design. And I recommend anybody that's looking at these, not just to read those words and then come up with your own idea of what's going on. Go listen to what they're saying and then go back and read it so that you have really good context of what they're doing and what they're trying to do. So very cool. A couple of UA articles.
Yeah. Man, that Soul Knife Rogue though, I really want to build Psylocke from X-Men.
Everybody does. Yeah. Everybody loves Psylocke. I love Psylocke so much.
So
you know, that game I've been playing, you see me, I'm playing on Steam all the time, is that Marvel game that is like the Candy Crush kind of style, but it's all Marvel characters.
Oh, okay.
My main character is Psylocke,
Nice.
And because she's so good at doing all the ability, I'm like, yes, Psylocke. I love the X-Men so much. So that was a little bit more of our UA article stuff. You can find the Dragon Plus with him, Bart Carroll and Jeremy Crawford.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lore you should know for Nautiloids.
Yeah,
Mr. Perkins.
Yeah, I watched that one because I was curious, and they kind of just talk about the history of Nautiloids and Spelljammer and things like that, and their capabilities and how they were allowed, they being the people that are making Baldur's Gate 3, allowed to expand on that mythology. So they're just like, well, no, we're going to say that they can like have brain pools and teleport and maybe the tentacles like grab people psionically. So yeah, actually now that we have like mind flayers and stuff in Baldur's Gate 3, I wonder if the psionic push is to have
the counter to that.
Well, like a joint release, you know, like Baldur's Gate 3 has all this stuff, and we're going to also allow you to have, you know, things like that in your game. So
yeah, that'd be great.
Why isn't there a mind flare race option? Has there ever been in D&D? They're such an iconic monster. I feel like I should be like able to be a half mind flare or something.
Yeah, you could probably put a tadpole in your brain, I'm sure.
That's weird. Okay, I like this idea. Anyway, there was so yeah, you can check out the Nautiloid video. It was okay. And what else do we want to talk about?
Did you notice when you went back, if you pull up the Dragon Plus video, or even the video I posted in our notes there, have you noticed this feature on YouTube? I've never noticed this. In the timeline of the latest D&D videos, there are little segments along the timeline that are identified as what they're talking about, and you can scroll through that and find exactly what you want to listen to for a certain part. So if you
little timestamps,
you would think they're timestamps, but they're more visual. Like, have you pulled the video up?
No, I don't want it to play.
And you take a look at it.
It's
that's true. It'll play. No, don't do that. Yeah, if you just look at the timeline, it's really different. I hadn't seen this on a video before, and I thought maybe this would be something you'd like to add to your videos as you're going through, especially your ones where you're teaching things, and you could put little segments and say, this is about this faction, this is about this faction.
Oh, so while they're editing it, there's like a pop-up.
They must be. I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, so check it out. I thought it'd be cool. Take a look at it. The reason I want to bring it up on today's show is because many of us only have so much time. So if more people start doing this on their videos, and you notice on the D&D videos, especially like when you look at Greg Tito's D&D news, because he's got a lot of stuff in there that you're like, okay, I don't care about this. I don't care about this. Oh, this is the piece that I really want to know about. It's easy to maneuver in that video now to get to the spot that you want. So keep an eye out for that.
Cool.
Other than that, I noticed you had a little bit of news.
Yeah, it's Cyclops Con. Dungeon Crawl Classics. The people that made it, Goodman Games. I think I don't know if they're just like, we want to get on this streaming bandwagon because they're finally realizing that a lot of people stream RPGs. But they are currently having an online convention called Cyclops Con, and they're going to play a whole bunch of different Dungeon Crawl Classics games. Obviously, system I really love. So if you're interested in that, if you want to like see how DCC is played, which I always think is, I mean, I'm personally very curious too, because I've only I learned D&D through podcasts, and I learned Dungeon Crawl Classics through reading the books. And those are very different ways to learn. Like, it's different to learn baseball from a rule book as opposed to watching baseball, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's really cool. There's twitch.tv/Goodman Games Official. Or if you just search Cyclops Con, there's all kinds of, anyway, yeah. And a friend of the show, friend of mine, who's in Rod of Seven Parts, Lex Mandrake, is going to run a custom one-shot that I helped write with him. And it's all Gonzo and funny. I snuck in the Infinity Gauntlet into that game, so you should it should be a lot of fun. If
you shouldn't miss it.
Really excited. That's going to be 7 p.m. Eastern on Twitch somewhere. I don't. It might be on Lex's channel. It might be on Nerd Immersions, or it might be on Goodman Games Official. I'm not really sure.
On certain days? What day? What
Today.
Day?
Today. 7 p.m. Eastern. So follow me on Twitter if you're interested in watching that. I think I'm going to try and watch it, at least the first little bit. But Lex is running that, and it's just going to be gonzo and funny. And I love Dungeon Crawl Classics, so he's really excited.
That's what I love about it.
It's going to be a lot of fun. I
love the humor. I love the dark humor. I love when people lean into it. When me and you got to play a little bit of it at the different conventions where we finally get somebody to run it for us. James is just so good about running gonzo funny kind of
he's wonderful.
MCC stuff. It's just so good. So
so that's cool. I unfortunately was I didn't sign up for Cyclops Con. I think the tickets were like $5, and then you could like buy spots into games, much like Gen Con. But I just had a full weekend. It wasn't going to happen. So, but I'm excited to watch them.
Anything's open now?
Well, Lex actually was like, "Hey, I bought tickets to these 2 games. If you want to play a game with me, you should buy a ticket for that." And I'm like, "Oh, I should." And then I went and looked, and they were both sold out. And so I was like, I can't get a ticket to the game that you're in. Sorry. So, yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, keep an eye out for all those online conventions, because I think a lot of them are going on. Yeah. And we will definitely tell you guys here, we're keeping a hawk's eye on Gen Con, which is the convention we want to go to. But we haven't heard anything yet. But once we do hear things, we'll definitely let everybody know.
What about Saturday morning D&D show con?
Let's do it. Starting in 1 hour.
We'll have an online convention. Me and you will run 24 hours of games in 6-hour sessions. So 6 hours on, 6 hours off. It'll be great.
Yeah, that'd be fun. I'm ready.
Okay.
I just stayed up till 2 a.m. last night playing. So
good job.
Well, let's move on to Lucien's favorite part of our show, Bartok Inspiration. I had a pretty good one this week. I saw yours in there, which sounded very cool.
Hells yeah.
Let's let you run with it. Tell me about your Bartok Inspiration this week.
Oh man, so
how did this happen?
This is actually something that I've been thinking about for a longer. But I have a folder on my computer called Inspiration, and it's literally cool pieces of art that I look at, and I'm like, could I make a campaign or a character based around what is going on in this picture? And I found some artist, and I feel bad, I don't really know the artist, but they were floating around the internet of Zodiac monsters. And I'll put this in, I uploaded them to Imgur today, not publicly. So if you have this link, you can see it. But if you don't have this link, you can't see it. But they are monsters from the zodiac, like our zodiac, Aquarius and Scorpio and things like that, but like envisioned like as monsters. And so I wanted do a whole campaign where not only do you have your regular character, but you have the star you were born under. So you would roll a D14 or 12 or however many zodiacs there are, I'm not really sure. And then it's like, oh, I was born a Scorpio. And then the campaign would be go out and either defeat these monsters or make pacts with them or something like that to defeat a bigger evil. But when you are born under the star of Scorpio, maybe in the land of Scorpio, you have like a +4 to everything because you're like attuned with it. But on the opposite side of that wheel, you would have a -4. But your other party member would have a +4. And so, I don't know, it could be a really fun, long-running campaign of you have to go to these 12 different spots and defeat these 12 monsters to get some kind of power to then defeat the evil overlord or something.
Wow, when you said the first sentence of that whole thing, let me tell you where my brain had went. Okay. I looked at the pictures and I went, he's going to say, this is what he's about to say, these creatures are your battle form. So when you go into battle, you transform into these giant creatures and you fight other giant creatures in these forms. I'm like,
that'd be cool.
This is the game I want.
No, I like the idea of them being
another
monsters.
area. I was
it's
like, oh no, I like what
really cool art though. So if you, I put it in a chat, or I put a link in the YouTube chat, so you should definitely check that out. But
I like the idea, or they could be like 2-story mega bosses, and like you said, the campaign is around defeating these 12 different raging 50-foot tall creatures that is just wrecking the world, and you've trying to take on and stop the devastation.
Maybe every year
different, it has different abilities.
Yeah, maybe every year another one wakes up because the stars are aligned, and you have exactly 1 year to destroy that one before the next one arises. Otherwise, you're going to have two to fight. And I think that would be really cool too. Kind of Shadow of the Colossus style, where like the whole campaign is, how do we climb this creature? How do we...
And if 5 of them come together in one area, they form Voltron. And then it's done.
How that works. That's exactly
how
that works.
I love those pictures. They are very evocative. Who's the artist on that? Does that
like I said, I'm not sure. I found them randomly a long time ago. And whenever I want to be inspired, I kind of go through I should actually share, personally with you, I should share this folder, because I don't want to like go distributing a bunch of art I don't own. But a lot of cool pictures in there where I'm like, oh my gosh, like a tiefling on the desert with a sword. I want to be like a sand wizard tiefling that, you know, and I don't know, I just get all these really cool ideas. So
I'll do that too sometimes when I'm thinking about what character I'm going to build for a campaign that's coming up. Instead of thinking about the mechanics I want to play, I'll scroll through just generic D&D character concept art, that's about as much as I'll put in. And then I'll just scroll page after page until something catches my eye, usually from like somebody's Conceptopolis, or, you know, those type of, I'm just like, oh, wait a minute, look at this guy, it's a Minotaur, this is so cool, you know, or whatever. And then
looking at my inspiration folder right now, I forgot about some of these, but I have a bunch of art called Nordic Harry Potter, where somebody took the characters of Harry Potter but envisioned them via Norse mythology. And so I was like, well, I don't know, like you could build some kind of a cool character around that. And I've got like angels and stuff. Potter. Like I had a bunch of angels that I wanted to use these various angels because like there aren't a lot of named angels in the Wizards of the Coast D&D canon. They are creatures, they're there, but like we don't have, and so I like that I could be like, oh, this is the angel of memory, or this is the angel of undoing, or the angel of this, and I don't know, angel of death, and you could have all these cool
mercy, like
more of a connection for a warlock, a celestial warlock, you know. So
very cool.
Anyway, it's a you should all get a poster that makes you, or a folder of art that inspires you, and that is my my inspiration. Go ahead, Mr. Lucien.
Mine is an interesting reminder to myself, and hopefully I can have people think about it in this way also. Is that I had a very mundane idea that turned into a really fun research project that then made me think, wait, how do I put this in a fantasy world? And the idea is I wanted to run an adventure, which we might get to a little bit later in the show, for my dwarf character, who is a player who's playing a dwarf. And one of his long-term goals, is he wanted to create a mine. And so we've kind of just been putting it off because we're doing adventure stuff. But I was like, you know what, let's run something where he's got some information. He can go up and look at these different places in the mountains, and he might find a couple of spots that are pretty good. So in my mind, as I'm building the adventure, I'm thinking, okay, well, I don't want to be crazy. So I don't just want to drop like a gold mine on him right away or anything. We'll say, okay, he goes in the mine and he has 4 spots. One of them is a copper mine. And he's like, oh, he's really excited about that, because that's what he was thinking, you know, like a cool copper mine. He could start a whole thing, and his brain was going. I was like, but I want to have a second one to give him another option, give him something. And I just decided to look at different ores that are out here in the world, because I'm like, well, what's different besides copper, silver, and gold was the only thing coming to my mind. And then I was like, well, we could go some type of gem mine, right? You could do a diamond mine or a ruby mine or something like that. And I was like, well, let me look at lists of ores. And I'm just looking, and I come across Cinnabar. I'm like, what is this? And I'm like,
it's an island in Pokemon.
Yeah. This leads me down this really cool concept of taking something mundane. Well, cinnabar is like this crushed crystal that is very red in nature. And what they used to use it in the old days is they could crush it and it makes a really vibrant red color. Something very hard to get in the world without using a dye to do this, to get the really good reds. Like before manufacturing is going on, you have to find the colors you want in the world. Well, cinnabar ore you could crush it and turn it into this really good dye. And that was a commodity that the Romans would trade, or, ancient China would trade, or Persia would trade. And it was really cool. And I thought, oh, okay. But cinnabar also is the main ore that when you process it, you can get quicksilver from, also known as mercury. And I thought, oh, the mercury metal, how cool would that be? And then my brain, this is where the Bartok Inspiration jumped in. What does quicksilver and what does mercury do in a fantasy world? And how does it work? Do they put it in weapons and armor? It's poisonous. But wait a minute, dwarves are immune to poison, so maybe they're not. So maybe they do use it in their cups and plates and whatever other stuff it is. So it made me jump on this huge thing. And I thought, okay, I'm going to use this cinnabar ore. So now my player has to decide, does he want to try to mine the cinnabar, or does he want to go after the copper? And what are the uses of the cinnabar ore? And I thought this is such a cool thing, because now me and him can go back and forth about how do you want to try to use this material in a fantasy way and find really cool exports for it, or find cool ways to use it. Because like we could use mercury in gnomish technology, because the gnomes are building things that have arcing, electricity, and mercury is really good for that. Or could you use stuff he could make bowls out of it, and if anybody else ate out of it, they would be poisoned, but he wouldn't from the mercury poison, because the dwarf doesn't get poisoned. So I just thought this was a really cool idea to pick something super mundane that's in the real world and then push it into a fantasy world and see how it works. So my Bartok Inspiration was finding something mundane. And in this case, it was just ore and a different ore that my player could use. They can use the crystals and maybe turn that into jewelry of some sort. Maybe they can I was wondering if you could turn mercury into a metal that could be made into like a sword or a dagger or something. But how would that work? Because we only know about mercury and thermometers and stuff, right? And barometers and things. So,
well, it's liquid. So, but you could magically do all kinds of interesting stuff with mercury.
It's liquid under pressure and at certain temperatures, but then it's solid at other temperatures and pressures. So could you play around with that in a fantasy world? So I thought that was kind of cool.
Scott in chat says there is a History Channel documentary on cinnabar called Silver Supernova, and I did a quick Google search, and I think it's on YouTube, so that's something you should watch.
I will. And that was the second part of the Bartok Inspiration, that making me look it up, so how we could fit it into a game. I just sat for probably the last 2 days reading up about the real cinnabar ore and how it was mined and what they did with it in history. And I learned something about my real world while picking something to go in my fantasy world. And I just felt really cool and energetic about learning something new and taking something I didn't know and mixing my two worlds together, my real world that I live in and my fantasy world that I'm building for my players. And I have something that bridges the gap and has uses in both, and new knowledge. I had new knowledge of what cinnabar is, how it's processed, and how could I use it in a fantasy world. So I just thought it was really cool. So,
yeah, that's fun.
That was my Bartok Inspiration.
It causes like
the endorphins are going for sure. There's chemical reactions in my brain that are making me feel good about it.
Mercury causes like insanity, and that's why we get the Mad Hatter, because people who made hats, haberdashers, they used to mold the brim of hats in a vat of mercury because it helped for some reason. And they would get mercury poisoning and go crazy. And the old prospector, like the crazy old prospector, that stereotype exists because they use mercury to get the gold out of rocks or something. So
it can be used to process.
But I like the idea that the dwarves are immune to it, so they've been using mercury for a long time. But it's
and what if your adventure is about the Mad Hatter Guild in Waterdeep, and all of these people that are wearing these hats are going mad, but your players might not even know that in the real life. Like Jordan knows that in the real life, so he might pick up on it. But imagine you have 4 players that have no idea that this is a real thing, and you've just put them on the mystery of a real thing in a fantasy world, so that they can discover this was a real thing. This was a true Mad Hatter's thing, was a cool thing. So I loved it. That just made me so excited this week. Just
that's
working
cool
on that.
Yeah.
And then we played on Friday night, and it all came to fruition, and it worked out perfectly. They found the Cinnabar mine, they found the copper mine. It was really good. So
I might watch a Cinnabar documentary today. That sounds really fun.
It was weird to pick up something new like that, just to know what it is. It's really fun. So that was mine. We get on to what we did in D&D. We got plenty of time, but usually I use it up because I talk way too much. So let's hear about Rod of Seven Parts. Let's hear about this Dark Souls game.
Yeah.
Let's hear what you got.
So last week I wasn't able. Last Sunday was Easter, so I didn't do a stream on prepping my game. But my party of Rod of Seven Parts, they went to the Undercity, which is also called the Elder City, a real thing in the Forgotten Realms that is beneath Baldur's Gate. And they recklessly kind of went into danger and ran into a lot of problems and a lot of fights here and there. And by the time they got to this Temple of Baal that is underneath Baldur's Gate, they were so beat up, they're like, we need to take a long rest. And they missed out on a lot of things that I prepped. And now I'm juggling, I'm juggling whether to keep the encounters I had prepped in the temple the same. Because the fact that they slept for 8 hours means that those people that were there are probably not there anymore. So join me tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific on my YouTube channel, and we're gonna hammer out that detail, try to figure out what's going on with this Temple of Baal. But they're having a lot of fun. It's really cool. I'm playing this Dark Souls D&D game. That's the Weird and Wild game, where we were in a crypt, and my fighter ended up making a pact with this undead lich creature, and now I'm going to be able to take warlock levels, so multi-class into warlock, and we're still trying to figure out if I can like erase fighter levels and convert those to warlock, or if I have to be this level 4 fighter going on further. And I'm fine with either. It's kind of creative and interesting, and it makes you, whenever you put restrictions like that, like a lot of people might get upset, but I like to think of it as, well, how can I be creative with my play style using those restrictions, And so I'm like, if I have to be a level 4 fighter, what do I do to like make my character more interesting and stuff? So it's a unique, different game. The DM's really excited about the world that he's creating. He's a big Dark Souls, Bloodborne fan, and so it's coming across really awesome. I'm playing my Wildmount game, which I thought was interesting, is we were hired to find this object that will influence the war between the two factions in Wildmount. And we found it, and it's a cube. And me being the wizard, I like cast Identify and tried to figure out what it is. It has a devilish writing on it. And we found out that if you attune to it and activate it, it removes all of the air in a mile radius. So smuggling this into the enemy's city and activating it will kill a lot of people. Like, we found a weapon of mass destruction, and we spent a long time being like, what do we do with it? And somebody was like, well, we need to destroy it. And we're like, how do we destroy it? We don't know. And they're like, we need to bury it. We need to do all this other stuff. We can't give it to people because think of how many innocent people are going to die. They ended up finding us trying to like hide it. And now I've convinced them to be on the council of studying it to see if, and so I'm going to try and influence it to try and destroy it. But I have a feeling someone's going to try and steal it. But I've never played a game like this where we have a object that could kill like hundreds of thousands of people. It's kind of interesting. So
that's murder hoboing at a whole nother level.
Yeah.
At that point,
I was like, we need to figure out how to get rid of this. So that's kind of fun. And the DM was like, I don't know what you guys are going to do. And he's really curious about our decisions going forward. So I think I'll be playing that one tonight. I'm really excited. That's my my tiefling conjuration wizard that I'm having so much fun with. Because part of being a conjuration wizard is you can summon just about anything you've seen that is in a 3-foot cube. So I'm constantly like, oh, deck of cards. I'm like, oh, did you want a hammer? And like, I just play it up because I think it's fun that I can just like summon these things for, and they're not like, I can't summon a sword and if you attack with it, it disappears, but it's fun. And then last Sunday, I ran a Dungeon Crawl Classics RPG 0-level funnel for my friends here in town over Google Hangouts. And
how many did you kill?
I killed... Let's see, we had 16. I killed about 11 characters. So, yeah.
A good fun.
Everybody had one character left, except one player had 2 characters left. And, yeah. But funnels are they're fun. They're just kind of silly. It was a module called The Hole in the Sky that I had ran before, so I was familiar with it. And now they all have level 1 characters that they're like, well, can we play again? And I'm like, yeah, we can. So it might be like a once a month, maybe once every 2 weeks we get together and do that. So
what prompted you to out of the blue run that?
Oh, well, I've been reading Lankmar, and I got my Perils of the Purple Planet, and I've been wanting to play these DCC games. And I know that the people that were interested in playing with me, they played in a Dungeon Crawl Classics game earlier and really liked it. So cool. I was like, I contacted all those people and made a fun Facebook group, and I'm like, let's play DCC. So
very cool.
Yeah, and that's what I did in games. It was a fun week. So,
boy, I had a pretty busy week. Even with a Monday game rescheduled, had a couple people couldn't make it. Should be back around Monday, which is the Savage Worlds game. And we'll get back to the X-Crawl versions of Savage Worlds, so very Shadowpunkish style. I got what's called a character advancement, so I have to figure out what I'm going to do with my character advancement. And in that one, it's more like you can update a skill, you can update an attribute, you can change, you can add an edge, you can add. So there's a lot of variety to. It's not just like when you go to the DMG and it says 3rd level, here's your stuff, write it down. It's like, here's all your options. What do you want to do with this thing? You know, so it's definitely a little bit more in depth when you're advancing your character. So I still have to figure out what I want to do with that. So that should be on the Monday night game. But Wednesday night, we're still playing Waterdeep Dragon Heist smashed together with Acquisitions Incorporated. And we had this really fun time. If you recall, I removed my Cavalier, I was playing as a really good straight shooter, straight cop kind of character, and it wasn't fitting in with the scoundrels of my party. And I thought, as fun as it is that we have this friction, and as much fun as it was for everybody to go back and forth about I'm a good guy, you're a bad guy, I didn't think I wanted to do it for a very long campaign. A couple of sessions would have been cool, but not like for a year-long campaign where it's me having friction with the entire party the whole time. So I was like, I asked my dungeon master, can I change a character out? I think it'd be more fun. And so we started talking about, well, how's this character get introduced? Well, when he gets introduced, I create this bugbear Gloomstalker who's going to join the party, and he's like, so how does he get introduced to the party? I'm like, this is perfect. I show up with a letter with the Inc. headquarters letterhead on it, and it says when you get moved from one office to another, there's a word for it.
Restructure, reorder, paradigm shift.
So like reassigned or you've been moved. So it has reassigned
transferred or something.
Yeah, transferred to Willowbrook, but then it has a line through it, and then it says transferred to Silvery Moon franchise, and then it has a line through it, and then it has transferred to Waterdeep. This one is like, this is the 3rd place, and it just says at the bottom, not a team player. That's the note he gives to the thing. So it was this idea that they couldn't find a good fit for him in one of the franchises before. This is the 3rd one he's been to. And so he comes in and he just starts interacting with the characters. He doesn't take any crap. He's a big giant bugbear.
Nice.
That does some just real cool stuff. And it just really worked out really fun, and everybody's having a good time with how the characters, and immediately we're right into a murder hobo session that night. We're burning buildings down. We're chasing characters that we think have wronged us. We don't even know if they've wronged us, but one person thinks they might have wronged us. So that means we should burn their entire corporation down. So it's been really funny how that's all come about. And it's been a really fun session with our Australia dungeon master, who's done a great job.
Nice.
And that's super fun. I can't wait to see where I can take the Gloomstalker. He's going to be perfectly aligned for going into Dungeon of the Mad Mage.
Oh, yeah. Being
able to dark vision at 90 feet. Dark vision, he's invisible for those who rely on dark vision to see, which I think is a cool thing. And then he has the bugbear ambusher thing where if on the first turn I attack, then you can get some extra damage, or you can get an additional attack. So there's some cool like burst damage up front to play. So really fun kind of character to dive into. The thing I have to figure out is like you like to multi-class. Do I start to multi-class at some point and get into more thief stuff, or maybe like a shadow sorcerer
right
multi-class at some point to really add some of that stuff in? I think it'd be
I,
cool.
I will point out, I don't actually like to multi-class.
Oh,
I really enjoy
so
the pure classes, but this Dark Souls game is about multi-classing. So yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. No, whenever I play, I always want to be like I feel I don't know, like I just I always feel like I want to be the stronger wizard or the stronger thief, and I get to do that by taking more levels in that thing, rather than being like, well, I've got this, like, I don't know, this cleric ability, but I can't do anything with it. So I don't know. That's how I always feel. But specifically this, I'm going fighter warlock because of we're playing around with this idea of multi-classing and having like a little bit of magic, but not a lot. So I think the barbarian is going to multi-class into a druid. So. Yeah,
I've rarely multi-classed ever. And I think the only time it comes up is when somebody asks you to, hey, we're going to play an adventure. Why don't you build a 10th level character to be in this adventure? And then that thing kind of starts rolling around in my mind. But when I'm playing it from 1 to whatever, I'm like you just said, straight class. I'm like, just keep giving me more levels of this. Keep giving me more levels of this. So I haven't actually done it, but I keep thinking about it. So
it's easier when it's level 10 because there are those key levels like multi-attack at level 5 or extra attack, I should say, and things like that if you multi-class, it's like, well, this character wouldn't really be fun to play from level 4 to 8, but at level 9 it all synergizes and works really well. So it's kind of fun to be like, oh yeah, like if we're gonna play a level 10 campaign, then I can I would consider multi-class more at that point.
Play around with it. So,
because then you could get an idea going rather than there are those painful levels where everyone's doing like lots of damage and you're still just like, I swing once. And that's what I'm actually have that conundrum right now with my fighter warlock, because I'm level 4 fighter, level 1 warlock. I really think I need to take one more level of fighter for extra attack.
Gotta get the extra attack.
Because otherwise I'll just be useless until level 9 when I can get it as a warlock. So
very interesting. So from last week, during last week, I got a lot of teasing from Jordan about a meme where if somebody asks about, hey, I want to play D&D for the first time online, what do I do? And I jump on it immediately and try to run that game for them, which is true. And so we did that last week where somebody came in and they said, hey, I want to play D&D. And we tried to set something up, but it fell through. But the silver lining of that is I was so amped up that I wanted to run a game that I just threw together a game for my regular group that said, hey, you guys want to play on Friday? They're like, I got 4 of them together. That was enough for me to run with it and say, let's play this adventure. So
awesome.
We did a Seeking Revenor adventure, which I talked about with the dwarf going to find the mine. And then the next thing, it made me really jump into what I want to do next. And I don't know what the actual schedule is going to be, but I'm going to check with the players, is we have Drubrin, who is a character that is chasing an artifact across the ocean back towards Waterdeep. And I thought, well, we could do a side adventure with him and his character line, and I would have the players build characters that fit to help him until he does the thing and comes back, and then they could play their normal characters back at Seeking Revenor. So it gives them a chance to create some just fun characters for a couple of adventures and goof around with something new. And then we come back and we can continue on where we're going with our normal storyline, just to give everybody a fresh look at, playing the game. And so that seemed really fun. It had me excited for running a game again, and everybody had a great time. Played till 2 a.m, which was super fun. And then Sunday, last Sunday, like you said, I got to play Starfinder that night, and we got to Absalom Station, which a lot of you, if you have heard of Starfinder, will have heard of that name.
Welcome to Absalom Station.
Yeah. And we got in a fight immediately with gangs from the station, and we got to learn a little bit about the mechanics. The Pathfinder mechanics are similar to D&D, but different enough that you feel like you're learning something different. You can't just say, I know D&D, so that makes it easy for me to go into Pathfinder, because that's not necessarily the vibe I've been getting. It's kind of its own combat thing that's going on and what you can do with actions and movements and bonus actions and things, and how your
I was actually thinking about that because I got the 2nd edition Pathfinder core book, and I was like, I should read that today, like, because I bought it and I flipped through it and I'm like, that's cool, but I was like, I don't know. One of my patrons really loves Pathfinder, and he's been going on and on about it, and I was like, I want to find somebody to run Pathfinder for me. So Lucien, if you want to run a Starfinder Pathfinder game, just like a 3-week thing, that's 3 sessions.
I can get you in one. Well, and playing this, the dungeon master that's running, he's brand new. He's never ran a game of it before. He was nervous because he's like, well, I don't know the rules, so I don't know if I want to run the game. And I kept telling him, and the other players kept telling him, don't worry about it. We'll learn the rules together. We're not just going to be like, hey, what's the rule, and be mad at you because you don't know it. Let's try to play it together, and we'll just see how this works. So everybody gets in it. And he's like, okay, that makes it easier for him to say, okay, I'll run the game, even though he's not real confident in the rules. Now playing this, and he says, maybe I want to do a few sessions, and I want to sit back and absorb what happened, and if I like still running games, or if I like playing more or running them more or whatever. I think he's in that stage where he's trying to figure out what he likes better. I was like, well, if you don't run this and everybody's having fun with this sci-fi stuff, I could use the same rules or a modified set of the rules, and I want to run XCOM universe.
Okay.
Have you seen the new XCOM? So have you played XCOM or XCOM 2?
No.
Oh, there's a new one coming out called Phoenix Command. So these are these like clandestine groups that have been created to fight off an alien invasion that's taking over the planet. You should see it on Steam. Go look at the videos. It's a very tactical, moving around game, and really fun kind of style of sci-fi game where you're trying to stop the invasion of aliens to our world, and they're going to take it over. And I thought, oh
gosh, aliens always want our world.
I know, we have such a good world. Why wouldn't they want it? So now I want to run that. And then it got me into thinking, like you had posted earlier, I want to create my own system, or I want to create this own thing. Or
that's something we didn't even talk about, but I've been working on that too.
yeah, we didn't even get to that. So long story short, I know Jordan doesn't like to go too long on our show. There was so much happening. I can't even get to all of it. Maybe we'll put some more of it in our show notes next week if we're late. Yeah. But it's been a great week of creativity, of playing, of getting together with friends online, obviously, and playing these games and fantasizing about our characters and where our worlds are going. And I just had a really fun week, even though I was still stir crazy the whole time because I couldn't really go anywhere yet, as it still wears on me. But that is all I had, Jordan. I think I'm ready for you to take us away.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Again, we love those iTunes reviews. We love Spotify reviews. Wherever you listen to this, reviewing us is great. If you watch it on YouTube, a like and a comment and telling your friends to subscribe is always wonderful. Thank you again, everybody on YouTube and everybody on Twitch that are watching us live Saturdays at 9 a.m. Tell us about your zodiac monster that refines ore in some kind of
Bartok Inspiration.
We would love to hear all about that. You guys are wonderful, and we will be back next week with another episode of Saturday Morning D&D Show. Check out Cyclops Con and actually watch all of the really fun games that are on Twitch and YouTube right now. Lots of really cool stuff if you're interested in non-D&D RPGs. You can learn a lot. It's really cool. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.